Welcome, family, to today's teaching. Family, I would like to begin with a question. Have you ever wondered how to navigate a world full of challenges while staying true to your faith? Well, Yahushua gave us a powerful lesson in Matthew chapter 10, verses 16 to 22, where he says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils and scourge you in their synagogues." Verse 18. "You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you should speak, for it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak." Verse 20, "For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you. Now, brother will deliver up brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But he who endures to the end will be saved." That puts the Christianity nonsense out of the window. Once saved, always saved. No, here we see, but he who endures to the end will be what? Will be saved. But what does that really mean for us today in these verses? Let's break it down together, shall we? And discover how we can live wisely, yet with integrity in our daily lives. Yahushua made references to four animals. He made references to sheep, wolves, serpents, and doves. Now, why did he do that? Let's look at Matthew 10:16 again. He said, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." Now he gave them a warning and some advice. He said, "Behold, look, be careful, look." In other words, "Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves." So the instructions are caution. "So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." Why did he make references to these four animals? The sheep, the wolves, serpents, and the doves. Well, each of these four animals, family, sheep, wolves, serpents, and doves, symbolizes a deep spiritual truth about human nature, challenges in life, and how believers should conduct themselves. Like what? Like the sheep, the wolves, the serpents, and doves. So let us examine the first animal Yahushua mentioned, which is the sheep. What can we learn from the sheep as humans? Because we think we know everything, don't we? And when he put things on the earth, including the animals, he put something for us to learn from them. So we are familiar with their characteristics and their behavior. And the sheep is a symbol of vulnerability and dependence. So what does a sheep represent in this scripture here, this passage in verse 10, chapter 10, verse 16? He said what? Innocence and trust. Sheep naturally follow their shepherd and rely on guidance. If you see a farmer outside with their sheep and anyone else comes along and calls to those sheep, they will not respond. But when the farmer comes along and he made the whistle or whatever noise he makes, those sheep will run behind him. And that's what is said, innocent and trust, and they naturally follow and rely on guidance. Not only that, sheep are vulnerable. Their vulnerability, they are without protection. They are easily attracted and they are attacked by predators. Now, faith and dependence on Yah. We should be like that for sheep, just like how the sheep depends upon the shepherd. The sheep remind us to trust in Yah's leadership rather than relying on our own strength. And the lessons we can learn from the sheep, for example, as believers, we are like sheep in a world that can be hostile. And we must trust in the Good Shepherd, our Messiah, to guide and protect us. Being a sheep does not mean being weak, people, but it means knowing who leads you, who is leading you. Okay, so don't let anyone tells you that because you have a sheep-like manner that you are weak. No, you're not weak, but it means knowing who you need to lead you. Sheep need protection and guidance, and Yahushua reminds us to depend on Him as our shepherd. And if we look in the book of John, John chapter 10, verse 11, what does he tell us? He said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his own life for the sheep. We are the sheep. He is our shepherd, and he is the one we should be following, okay? And the human behavior versus the sheep characteristics, for example, sheep, flock mentality, sheep follow the group, relying on the shepherd for guidance, just like we need our shepherd, our Messiah, to guide us. And also, sheep is dependent and they are trusting. They trust the leader, the shepherd, without question. That's exactly what the Father expects from us. Not only that, sheep are vulnerable to predators. Sheep lack natural defenses and are easy prey. And in this wicked world, we need to navigate ourselves with the instruction coming straight from our heavenly shepherd, because it is no match for us. But because we are under his care, we are safe. So therefore, although we are vulnerable, he is there to protect us. Amen to that. Sheep are also easily led astray, because if one sheep wanders off, others might follow even into danger. And that characteristics you can see day after day in human lives. Just because someone did something, someone else goes and follow and end up in nothing but big trouble, and their life sometimes even ended up in danger. So sheep are very easily led astray, and that's one of their characteristics. Another characteristic of the sheep, they are genuine and simple. Sheep don't scheme. They are honest creatures by nature. And it's very, 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 not very often, I might say, we can find people like that who are genuine. They speak to, the corners of their mouth. They say one thing with their mouth, but there's something else going on in their heart. And we need to be like the sheep, genuine and simple. Then he also mentioned the wolves. And what does wolves represent? They represent danger and deception. Deception and also manipulation. Wolves are cunning predators, preying on the weak. That is a trait in some people as well. You get the scammers, for example, are known for this. They're known for their scamming behavior, just like the wolves. Not only that, their hostility to truth. Yahushua warns that the world will oppose righteousness, family. They will oppose righteousness, and they will come after you and persecute you. Just as wolves attack sheep, believers will face opposition and will be attacked by those who reject Yah's truth. And also, looking at this, we need spiritual awareness and discernment. Now, the world can be harsh. And when we look at it in this context, the world can be harsh, representing the wolves. And believers, as believers, we must remain aware of their surroundings, of our surroundings, choosing the battlefields widely. We have to choose our battlefields wisely, okay? Pick your battles. You don't have to fight every battle that presents itself before you. Wolves are highly intelligent, they're strategic, and they are social predators. And they work in packs, family. They establish dominance and use calculated aggression to survive and thrive. And in Matthew 10, verse 16, our Messiah is warning us, his disciples, that we are like sheep among wolves, meaning we will encounter people who behave like wolves, opportunistic and manipulative, or they can be predatory. They will chase you down and kill you if you're not careful. And they're also wolves of characteristics, dominance, and control. How wolves behave. How does wolves behave? Wolves establish dominance, family, with their pack through posturing, growling, and even fighting. The alpha wolf asserts control over others. Do you know anyone like that? Always want to be in control? And the human behavior, like the wolves, some people seek to dominate others through intimidation, manipulation, or social pressure. We are living among these types of people, and we must learn how to navigate and still live a righteous life. But if we don't know that they are wolves, then we are putting ourselves in great danger. Not only that, but the wolf is also opportunistic. Prediction. They wait for every opportunity to strike. How do they behave? They prey on the weak, on the sick, or on the isolated. Let me repeat that. Wolves prey on the weak, on the sick, and on the isolated, targeting those who cannot defend themselves. They hunt strategically, waiting for the right moment to attack. There are people around you. Some might be in your circle, in your family, in your workplace, as your neighbor, who have these traits like wolves. You didn't see it coming. They will befriend you for years, but they have a plan, and one day they strike. What are they? What do they wait for? When you are vulnerable, when you cannot defend yourself. And the human behavior to match that, some individuals will take advantage of vulnerable people in times of crisis or weakness. And this is what our Messiah is trying to teach us in these verses. For example, when you take this fraudster who seems elderly, who scams elderly people out of their savings by pretending to help them, that's the wolf-like nature. Now we need to look at also the strategic and the patient behavior of wolves. How wolves behave. Wolves plan, they plan their attacks very carefully. They do not rush, often stalking their prey for hours or even days before striking. And I said that earlier. Someone in your life, or a friend, or people in your own family, will plan something to hurt you, but they don't do it overnight. They'll be watching and planning and scheming just like the wolf. And that's what our Father is teaching us in the Word. We need to look at how the wolves behave. They are calculated, patient, and persistent. They are persistent hunters. And the human behavior on that hand is some people use long-term strategies to get what they want from you. Even if it harms you, they don't care. They have a plan, they're going to see it through, and you are there thinking that they're on your side. Even when you're trying to share your faith with them, weeks in, weeks out, there is no enthusiasm on their part, not knowing that they are planning long-term strategy to get what they want from you, whatever it is that you have. They want it. Wolf-like nature. And for example, a manipulative friend may act unhelpful for months, but later use that goodwill to guilt trip you into doing what they want. And you think it's you doing it. No, they manipulated you, and they get what they want by putting you on a guilt trip. We even see this kind of behavior in political leaders. They might build alliances over time and then turn against former supporters when it benefits them. Wolf-like nature. Now, a wolf's behavior reflects how some people operate in our society, seeking power, preying on the weak, and using strategy to do what? To dominate. Recognizing these traits allows us, family, to navigate life with wisdom, protecting ourselves while maintaining our integrity. Now, Yahushua told us, as his followers, to exercise whatever wise shrewdness they can to avoid conflict and danger without losing the dove like innocent. Let me say that again. We are being taught how to be shrewd, but not shrewd in wickedness. We need to learn how to be shrewd and at the same time avoid conflict and danger without losing our dove-like innocence that will allow us to continue to proclaim the truth without fear. And it will be a hard balance to keep, but it will be necessary for the mission in order for us to be successful, family. Hallelujah. So the lessons that we can learn from the wolves. Not everyone has good intentions. Some people manipulate and deceive. And I'm sure if you reflect over your own life, you can recall something in your life where someone has deceived you. And this is what these passages are speaking about. The world can be, and it is at times, a very harsh place. And not everyone will welcome the truth of the gospel, especially when you try to share it. They can see the light in your life, but they prefer to stay in their darkness. So they behave like wolves. So we must be aware of spiritual and emotional dangers, family, my brothers and my sisters, while standing firm in our faith. Wolves seek to harm, they seek to deceive, and they also seek to destroy. And we must recognize their behavior. We must recognize them and not be caught off guard, family. Okay? Because the enemy roars about like a lion to seek to harm and destroy. The wolf does exactly the same. Now, the next animal that was spoken about in these passages is the serpent. And we can find the first mention of that in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. And I'm reading this from the Amplified. Now, the serpent was more what? Crafty, subtle, skilled in deceit. Did you see that? Skilled in deceit than any living creature of the field which the Most High Yah had made. And the serpent, Satan, in Hebrew is Asatan, said to the woman, can it really be that Yahweh has said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden? So snakes, serpents, have always represented a cunning nature, and the dove is known to represent good character. But in this case, Yahushua isn't using the image of the snake in a positive way. In other words, how to use wise shrewdness, integrity with integrity. So he's showing us in this instant, in Matthew, he's saying, be wise as serpents. He's saying, use your wisdom, but use it with integrity. And snakes do show some level of intelligence. As with many types of animal, however, different species of snake can exhibit different levels of intelligence. Now, the king cobra, for example, is regarded as one of the most intelligent snakes. However, snakes in general are considered to behave more instinctively rather than intelligent animal, okay? So the context of that was Matthew 10:16 verse 20 said, listen carefully. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. And so be wise as serpents. It doesn't say to be wicked like a serpent, but be wise, be shrewd as serpents, and also innocent as doves. Have no self-serving agenda. Beware of men whose nature is to act in opposition to Yah, for they will hand you over to the courts and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be brought before governors and kings for my sake as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they hand you over, do not worry about how or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given you within that very hour. For it is not you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. So, what can we learn from the behavior of the serpent? A serpent typically behaves by trying to avoid confrontation, preferring to flee when approached, and only becoming defensive if cornered or threatened, often displaying behaviors like hissing, coiling, or striking as a warning before biting. So when the scriptures speak of be wise as serpents, why? Why is it saying that be wise as serpents? We need to use wisdom and strategy. Snakes move carefully and avoid unnecessary danger. Okay? And we need to know when there's danger. Sometimes we go full on, rushing straight into the danger without realizing that, you are out of your league. And that's why we need to get wisdom. Snakes are also cautious and observant. They don't attack unless threatened and preferring to retreat wisely. They also have discerning and strategic. A serpent knows when to act and when to stay silent. So the takeaway from that, Yahushua wants us to be what? Smart, not naive. Wisdom, family, protects us from danger. Wisdom protects you, will protect you if you just smarten up. Now, the example of the serpent-like behavior in some humans in a positive light. Some people, like the serpent, prefer to avoid unnecessary conflict and will remove themselves from a tense situation rather than engage in an argument. That is wisdom. That is wisdom. Example, a co-worker who dislikes office drama might stay quiet in meetings and focus on their work, only speaking up when directly challenged or accused, just like the serpent, only becoming defensive if cornered or threatened. We can also learn that strategic thinking and caution in business or leadership. A wise leader, like a serpent, knows when to step back and observe before making a move. Some of you need to know when to step back, when to be still, or when to move forward. As I said before, you don't have to fight every battle. Choose your battles. And it's a good example here. A business owner, for example, might avoid direct confrontation with a difficult client, instead addressing, a concern subtly and professionally to protect their reputation. Again, wisdom is here demonstrated. So what I was saying, someone in business might have a very difficult client. They're coming on the phone, they're shouting, they're screaming, they're going on. Professionally, you deal with it very mildly, because why? You want to protect your reputation. That is wisdom. Also, self-defense mechanism in survival situations, like the snake. Just like a snake only strikes when cornered, and some individuals react only when their boundaries are crossed. So these are the things we need to be aware of. For example, again, a quiet and reserved individual might tolerate teasing or minor insults, but will stand up and defend themselves if someone seriously disrespects them. They know when to hit back. We also look at the emotional self-preservation in personal life. Some people instinctively retreat from toxic relationships rather than engaging in unnecessary emotional battles. You don't have to fight every battle, especially those toxic relationships they're in. It's a way out. You need to know when to get out, when to engage, and when to stay. An example is a person in a manipulative friendship may slowly distance themselves rather than confront the manipulator head on, and unless forced into a situation where they must defend themselves. All positive traits of the serpent. As I said, the serpent don't fight every battle. He knows when to move away and when to attack. Now, a person in a manipulative friendship, you can see the serpent wisdom in action. In a manipulative friendship or relationship, one person exerts control over the other using guilt, emotional blackmail, or passive aggressive tactics. The person being manipulated often find themselves walking on eggshell, you know the kind, afraid to upset your friend, even when the relationship feels one sided or emotionally draining. How this mirrors the behavior of a serpent? Well, avoidance as a first response. Just as a serpent will retreat when approached rather than immediately attack, a person in a manipulative friendship or relationship might initially ignore small red flags, hoping things will improve. And if their friend constantly makes subtle jabs at them, they might brush it off rather than confront the issue, just like a snake. Now, withdrawing from the toxic relationship, a snake will slither away rather than engage in a fight it doesn't need to fight. So simply, the person being manipulated may begin distancing themselves. That's a way out, slowly, to do what? To protect their mental and emotional well being. And some of you need to look at your current relationships that you are in. You need to withdraw yourself from toxic relationship and slither away like the snake does. You do not have to stay and engage in that. Okay, they might start responding less. You might start responding less to the toxic messages, and you're making polite excuses to decline invitations or spending time with other friends who treat you with respect. Spend more time with those kind of friends and slowly take yourself away like the snake. Okay, nothing negative. That's very positive. And strategic exit over direct confrontation. A snake doesn't fight unless absolutely necessary, and that's what the word is teaching us. A snake doesn't fight unless absolutely necessary. Likewise, many people in manipulative friendship choose to exit quietly rather than engage in a dramatic confrontation. And maybe some of you are in that situation today. You don't have to fight it out, just take yourself away like a snake. So instead of getting into a drawn out argument and shouting match, you might gradually fade out of the friendship, setting firmer boundaries and no longer giving in to the emotional manipulation of that so called friend. And if you are a person in a manipulative relationship, you must discern when to engage and when to step away. Just as a serpent wisely avoids danger but will defend itself if necessary. The goal is not to be aggressive, but to protect oneself from harm while maintaining personal integrity. And if we are in the world as followers and believers of our Messiah, we need to be aware that there are people like that who will antagonize, who will push you like a wolf. They will come after you. And we need to navigate sensibly in Yah's wisdom so that we can walk in a personal integrity. And leaving a manipulative friendship can be emotional. I know that it can be emotionally challenging, especially if the manipulator is skilled at guilt tripping you or playing the victim. However, using the wisdom of the serpent and the innocence of the dove mentioned in chapter 10, Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, you can exit gracefully and firmly. So, how do you recognize the manipulation? Before taking action, identify the patterns of manipulation. And some common tactics include guilt tripping. After all I've done for you, you're just going to ignore me. There you go, there's one. Playing the victim. I have no one else but you. You're abandoning me. Or they might gaslighting. You're imagining things. I never said that. And then we have the passive aggression, silent treatment, backhanded compliments, or making you feel bad indirectly. That's when you need to know, recognize the manipulation. That's where you need the wisdom of the snake and then take yourself away. And how do you disengage from that manipulative friendship effectively? You must acknowledge that this is not a healthy relationship, not a healthy friendship and give yourself permission, my brothers and my sisters, to walk away, especially when you have been trying to share your faith with these kind of people. They can secretly develop a deep resentment towards you and can become very dangerous towards you indeed. A snake, as I said earlier, slithers away quietly when sensing danger. This is sometimes the best approach in a manipulative friendship relationship. Walking away from a manipulator doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your own well being. And like the serpent, you are choosing to move wisely. And like the dove, you are doing so peacefully. Let me repeat that, family. Put that one down in your pencil and write it down. Walking away from a toxic relationship doesn't mean that you are weak or you don't care. It means you care enough about your own well being. Because, like the snake, the serpent, you are choosing, family, to move wisely. And like the dove, you are doing so peacefully. There we see, again, the good side of the snake. And what is the biblical connection to Matthew 10:16? Our Messiah instructs us to be what? Wise as serpents, meaning as followers, we should navigate the world with caution, avoiding unnecessary trouble, but also knowing when to stand our ground and when our faith or principles are challenged. Be wise as serpents. And practical application of that, as believers, we can practice discernment in interactions, knowing when to speak, when to walk away, and when to stand firm in faith. That's the application we need to practice. That's the wisdom of the snake. Okay? Knowing when to speak, when to walk away, and when to stand firm in faith. And the final animal we look at is the dove. It is said, and harmless as doves. Now, behavior of the dove and its connection to human behavior, symbol of peace. Doves avoid conflict and seek harmony. They do not attack or harm anyone. A dove represents Yah's presence and peace, Matthew 3:16. In Matthew 3:16, it said, after Yahushua was baptized, he came up immediately out of the water, and behold, the heavens were opened, and he, John, saw the Spirit of Yahweh descending as a dove, lighting on him, Yahushua. Yes, so again, what's the dove behavior? Presence of peace. Doves avoid conflict. Doves do not attack others. Doves are trusting and gentle. Doves are not aggressive and do not harm others, as I said. Doves are gentle and sincere. They are not deceitful. That's why it was mentioned in the passage there. Doves are loyal and faithful. They form strong bonds, especially in relationships. They are guided by instinct, not strategy. And unlike serpents, doves don't use cunning. They operate with honesty and sincerity. That's the lesson the Father is trying to teach us in the Word. Doves are vulnerable because they lack defense mechanism, and doves can be taken advantage of if not careful. And again, that's why you need the snake wisdom to know when you're being taken for a ride. And the human behavior that reflects the dove is peaceful or peaceful individuals. Some people naturally avoid conflict and strive to bring people together. And trusting and open up hearted people, you have people who are open hearted, people who believe the best in others, and sometimes their own detriment. But there are people, and sometimes you need to know, as I said, when to pull back. And doves are compassionate and giving, those who help others selflessly without expecting anything in return. That's what the message is. Forgiving nature, people who forgive easily even when they are wrong. That's the dove-like nature. And the lesson from the dove is being harmless does not mean being naive. Okay, let me repeat. Being harmless does not mean that you are naive. A dove should combine its gentleness with the wisdom of the serpent to avoid being exploited. Do you understand, family? Let me repeat. These are very important lessons. Being harmless does not mean that you are naive and you should be like a dove. You must combine your gentleness as a dove and also combine it with the wisdom of the serpent. So what? So you can avoid being exploited. If you do not apply these characteristics, you will be exploited. Now, the serpent is strategic, cautious, and avoids unnecessary confrontation. And this teaches us to navigate challenges wisely. Now, all of the animals in Yah's creation give us different images that often remind us of different groups of people, like their characters, personalities, and even in work environments. The fact are that human beings are often irrational. Whether believers or not, we all have our inner struggles and emotions, but the Most High still entrusts us to carry out His mission while we are on this earth, sending us into the world as witness for His kingdom. And if we are going to do that successfully, then we need to read these verses and apply our abilities and our skills according to those four attributes of the snake, the sheep, the wolves, and the doves. Okay, so here we see Yahushua sent out his disciples, comparing the people and situations they encounter for non-human creatures. He was comparing the situation to four non-human creatures. He said it, I am sending you out like what? Sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes, but also as innocent as doves. Okay, that again was Matthew 10:16. In other words, be on your guard, be alert. And the innocence of the dove symbolizes, as I said, purity and peace and honesty. And this reminds us to act with integrity. We should at all times avoiding deceit or malice. And here is the key: balance. Balance is the key. And the lessons we again can continue to learn from the dove, even in a hostile world, we should remain pure in our hearts. We should show kindness even when others are cruel. Be honest and sincere and do not use deceit even when others do. You don't have to follow them. And the key takeaway is a dove remains gentle even in a cruel world. We should also remain gentle. We should do exactly the same. And Yahushua instructs believers to combine wisdom with innocence, being shrewd without being manipulative, and gentle without being naive. He also wants us to know that He is sending us as disciples to a world filled with hostility. I know you know that. Filled with danger and also filled with deception, and we should not lose sight of that fact. We are disciples of the kingdom, my brothers and my sisters. Let me repeat that. We are the disciples of the kingdom of Yah, living in the midst of people who are just like wolves. They can be found in your place of work, your next door neighbor, even families. And the disciples are as weak and helpless as sheep. And as disciples, yes, we are as weak as sheep. So let's take note. Matthew 10:16 is not saying that disciples are like sheep or is sheep. Rather, he's saying that the situation that we as disciples are entering into is like sheep among wolves. There is a difference. It is like using the metaphor of a fox among chickens. So, what was the situation to which Yoshai was referring to? And the answer is in context here in verse 17 and 18. It is teaching us to beware. Be aware of men whose nature is to act in opposition to Yah, for they will hand you over to the courts and flog you in their synagogues, and you will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as witnesses to them and to the Gentile. Sometimes we feel when we are doing the work of the Most High that it's easy sailing, it's a free drive. No, just because you're doing what the Father calls you to do does not mean that you will not meet with conflict, does not mean you will not come across wolves. You will. But he said, be aware of men whose nature is to act. Why? Opposition. Not everyone wants to hear the message. Not everyone is interested, but you feel that we should be telling the truth. We must know when to walk away. Okay, we must know when to walk away. Sheep among wolves is reality we have to face during our time here on earth. And sometimes, people, if we're not careful, walking in wisdom, it can cost us our lives. That's why we need wisdom. Now, why did our Messiah use these four animals? Why did he choose these animals? Well, he chose these animals to teach balance and how we should live as believers. One, trusting like a sheep, but don't be naive. Two, be aware like a serpent, but don't be deceptive. Three, pure like a dove, but don't be weak. And four, be cautious of wolves, but don't become one yourself. These scriptures is demonstrating to us that being a follower of Yahushua in the world requires faithfulness. That we should trust in Yah. That faithfulness like a sheep, trust in Yah like a sheep, but don't blindly follow other people. Discernment like serpents, but be wise like a serpent. Make strategic decisions and avoid unnecessary trouble. Kindness like a dove, stay pure like a dove. Don't let the world corrupt your heart. Also be awareness of evil, that's the wolves. Recognize wolves in your lives. Not everyone, family, has good intentions towards you. And we must balance innocent with wisdom and being peaceful but not foolish and wise but not deceitful. Hallelujah. And how do we apply this to everyday life, whether in work, ministry, or personal growth? We must balance intelligence with kindness to be effective while staying to the truth and staying truth to our faith. Hallelujah. Family, thank you. As we have explored today, Yahushua calls us to be wise and innocent, strategic yet pure. And in a world that often challenges our faith, let us remember to navigate life with discernment and integrity. Practice these examples of the characteristic of the sheep, serpents, doves, and the wolves, so that you can walk in wisdom and also walk in innocence in your own life. Hallelujah. We've come to the end of this lesson. If this message blessed you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more biblical insights. Until next time, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of Yahweh is upon you. Continue growing in faith, family. Shalom.